Hello, my name is Jamie Castillo, and this is my presentation for PE 572, Foundations in Sports Management. In this presentation, we're going to be going over the three different levels of athletics for students: high school, junior college, and four-year colleges/universities. We're going to be going over the different eligibility rules, as well as who creates these rules and regulations and how the athletic director can apply those rules and regulations to their student body and their staff. We are first going to go over high school athletics. Each state runs its own athletic rules and regulations. For California, it's run by CIF, which is California Interscholastic Federation. These rules and regulations can be found on their website, which is cifstate.org. Athletic directors in the high school field need to be educated on these rules and also educate their coaches. So coaches are not allowed to recruit or scout students who are not yet enrolled in the high school, meaning that they can't go to other high schools to recruit students. They also cannot go to middle schools or any other youth club sports to recruit students. Students must be already at that high school in order to be recruited, so to say. The services that athletes are rewarded or given would be any type of athletic advising. This is primarily done through the athletic director. I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Bill Gunn from Centennial High School in Corona, and he said that the athletic administration is pretty small. It really just pertains to him. There is a front desk administration who does help him, but he's primarily the only one, so there's no other specific counselors. But students are encouraged to reach out to their coaches and to him, who is the athletic director there. The eligibility for high school athletics is going to vary between each high school, but primarily and normally you'll see that students must maintain a 2.0 GPA. If they're coming straight out of middle school, they are automatically eligible because grades haven't been set yet. But if the new quarter turns and grades are turned out and they have less than a 2.0 GPA, they will not be able to participate either for the remainder of the season or the next season coming up. They have to have a physical exam completed. If they are not cleared by a medical personnel, they will not be allowed to compete. This is to ensure the safety of the students. The student also is only allowed to compete for a maximum of 4 years. This means that if, for whatever reason, the athlete wasn't eligible for one of the seasons and had to stay an extra year in high school, they will not be able to compete in that extra year, because you want to help motivate these students to continue on for their athletic career into college. The other thing is that the practicing in the game schedule is determined by the coach. So if the coach feels that the student who is not participating in practice or not showing up to practice will not get to play in the next game, but that is solely determined by the coaches themselves. Moving on to junior colleges. Junior colleges are governed, again, by their state. For California, it's done by the CCCAA, which stands for the California Community College Athletic Association. This is also broken down to sectors similar to CIF, so they can compete in their conference level and then compete at the state level. The rules and regulations are also found on their website, which would be CCCAA.org. The rules and regulations are governed by an executive, what they call the executive branch or a board of directors. They meet 4 times a year to help update these regulations. Athletic directors need to be aware of these because there are specific recruiting requirements. The coaches are allowed to send assistant coaches or themselves out to high school sporting events to recruit athletes, but they are not allowed to approach athletes who are not yet in their 3rd year of high school, meaning that they're juniors in high school. They have to be juniors or seniors. I did speak to Jeff Kleins, who's the athletic director of Chaffey College in Rancho Cucamonga, and he says that he recommends that these coaches wait until the senior year of high school to approach these athletes, because they're still trying to figure things out and decide where they're going to go. And normally junior colleges are the last resort for some of these kids. The redshirt rule is a little bit different. So for red shirts, they are allowed to redshirt for 1 year. So that way they can continue maintaining their eligibility, continuing on in athletics. The requirements for junior college athletes is very similar to that of high school athletes. They must maintain a 2.0 GPA. Of course, this varies between colleges as well. If for whatever reason the student does not have a 2.0 GPA at the end of a semester, they will not get to continue competing for that season, or they will not be allowed to compete in the next season. They must get that GPA up and reflected on their transcripts. They again have to have a physical done and be cleared by medical personnel. A different part of the requirements is that they must be enrolled full-time. So some students may be enrolled part-time at 2 different colleges, which would make them full-time altogether. That is not allowed. They have to be full-time at that specific college. A full-time student is 12 units total. If for whatever reason they drop below the 12 unit marker while in season, they will be removed from the team and not allowed to compete. These rules and regulations are set by the CCCAA. They are allowed to compete for a maximum of 2 years, which of course they're allowed to redshirt one of those years if for whatever reason they have an injury right before season. Moving on to the four-year college or the four-year university athletics, very similar to that of a junior college as well. Instead of being governed at a state level, they're governed more on a national level. So there's 2 different types of committees. One is the NAIA. This governs more of the smaller universities or the population universities, as well as a little bit lower level of competitiveness as compared to the NCAA, which is more known. This is also a national group and governs a lot larger university populations and a bit more of a competitive level. It's also divided into divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3. 1 being that it's a higher standard of competition. They are awarded more athletic scholarships than that of a Division 2 and Division 3. And typically you don't see very many athletic scholarships awarded into Division 2 or 3. These both have their own website in which you can view the rules and regulations, and athletic administrators need to know where their school lies under. There's specific rules and regulations on which one they can go under, and there's a different process that they have to go through in order to become part of these committees. Schools are also able to move from one committee to the or one governing group to the next, depending on their population size and competitive level. With this as well, students are awarded different services. There is a lot more funding, so there are more counselors that students can go to. There is a little bit more resources and a bigger administrative staff. And also, there is the recruiting is a little bit different in the sense of you still have to maintain the same recruiting requirements for high school, where you can't talk to them until their 3rd year of high school, but you can talk to them when they're at junior college. This meaning that an athletic director at a 4-year university can contact the director at a junior college so that they can set up a meeting with the athlete themselves. This builds up a little bit more camaraderie, is a little bit more respectful and professional, so that all the information gets laid out on the table. The athlete isn't so much confused. And this way they can go through the proper procedures as well. The eligibility for 4-year university athletes, again, is very similar to that of the junior college. They must maintain a 2.0 GPA, and it must be reflected on their transcripts. They also need to be enrolled full-time, which means that they have to be enrolled in 12 units while in that one particular university. Lastly, the physical exam, a little bit different from that of the junior college or high school level. They do need to be approved and signed off by a medical personnel, but they also, if they're a part of the NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3, they will be needed to be assessed and tested for performing enhancing drugs. This means an athletic director will be performing not an athletic director, an athletic trainer will be performing the assessment, having to go into the restroom with them to make sure that nobody is cheating. If a school or an athlete is found cheating or using substances, they will be removed from competition and will not be allowed to compete in any type of championship. This may also have funding revoked from the school, so it's very important that students follow this. Lastly, they're allowed to compete for a maximum of 4 years. Now, this is, of course, if the student is coming from straight out of high school to a 4-year university. If a student is coming from a junior college, which they already competed for 2 years, they would only be allowed to compete for the remaining 2 years at the 4-year university. But it is very important to let athletes know as they transfer through. In conclusion, there's athletics are very different yet very similar in many avenues. It's very important to know the different rules and regulations because they do vary between state, between committees, and for athletic administrative staff, it's very important that they stay up to date with these rules and regulations because they're constantly changing and being updated according to today's times. I did have the opportunity to talk to 3 different personnel from each level. From the high school level, Bill Gunn suggested that you be authentic every time you talk to media or different universities or the students because that allows you to be upfront and honest and personal. Your goal is to promote these student athletes. So if you're not authentic, you're never going to really help them. In talking to Jerry Klein from Chaffey College, he said that you have to be educated. Like I stated earlier, you have to be up to date with the rules and regulations. Otherwise, you may come into fault, and your coaches may not be performing at the regulations properly, and you could get in trouble, and it could have your school removed from competition. I also got the chance to talk to Gary Pines, who's the athletic director at Azusa Pacific, and he let me know that, it's okay to move up the ranks. Some universities, you have to start at the bottom. It's also very important to network. Not only does this help you personally in your career, but it helps your students network a little bit better. It helps retain sponsorships and funding from different avenues, which helps pay for different fees. And so all 3 of these gentlemen really did help give a little bit more advice. So I wanted to include that in my conclusion. That is it for my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you gained a lot of information from it. Again, if you need to look up these regulations, they are found online at each committee's website. Also, each state is also going to be different. So if you're going to be an athletic director at a state, it would be important and well advised to look up these websites in other areas. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. When applying everything that has been presented in this presentation, it's important to know, again, the rules and regulations. Being organized and being well educated is one of the 2 most important advices that I have to give. At the high school level, it's really about academics more so. As you continue through at the 4-year universities, athletes may be eligible to compete in the professional realm. In this sense, the athletic director would be a median. So you have to work on the communication skills in order to really apply your learnings there, because you want these athletes to compete at the professional level if at all possible, because many won't get the opportunity to do so. Being a median, being an advocate for the students is very important. Another thing that you can apply is being organized with the eligibility. If the student's not eligible for whatever reason and it's not caught right away, it can put the school into serious danger where they get taken out of the championships. They may not be eligible to play in the playoffs, or they might even lose funding. So that's also very important and should be noted when performing in a job title as such.